The prologue opens with two classmates rousing Hajime Nagumo by slamming his desk. Among them is Daisuke Hiyama, notorious for constantly picking on him. They tease Hajime for always dozing off, blaming it on his habit of staying up late, but he's unfazed by the jeers. Kori Shirasaki steps in, sits beside Hajime, and gently reminds him about being on time. Kori, celebrated at school as one of the two great beauties, keeps a closeness to Hajime that even he can't explain. And despite her popular friends disliking him, she insists on staying by his side. Moments later, Aiko Hatayama enters and tells everyone to take their seats, when suddenly a blinding white glow rises from the floor. In the next instant, the entire class is transported to a completely different world. As chosen heroes, they've been summoned by a god to fight demons and save humankind on the brink of extinction. Captain Meld briefs them on status plates and classes. Apparently, combat classes are the most prized. Only about 10 in 10,000 have one. Kori receives the rare healer class. Poor Hajime's fate doesn't improve here either. He's assigned the plain Synergist class. Hayama laughs at his low rank. As events move forward, the question becomes whether Hajime's life will truly change in this unfamiliar realm, or if the same struggles will continue. The anime's story then cuts to Hajime awakening deep inside the Great Orcus Labyrinth, a deadly dungeon swarming with monsters. He assesses his dire situation and the very real possibility of death while trying to find a way out. No clarity comes until a nearby rabbit-type monster catches his eye. The seemingly harmless creature reveals itself as vicious, effortlessly shredding two other beasts with a barrage of attacks. After devouring them, it turns on Hajime, but a much larger predator appears, fells the rabbit, and eats it. Terrified, Hajime bolts. The bear-like monster notices and charges. He desperately tries to flee but suffers a grievous injury. His arm is severed by the bear's strike. Even so, Hajime realizes he must drive the beast off to live, so he repeatedly uses transmutation, reshaping the terrain to create a barrier and escape. The bear gives up pursuit as Hajime holes up in a small cavern. Shaken to the core, he collapses. When he comes to, he's lying beside a sacred stone that produces holy water, which he uses to mend wounds and lift curses. He recalls from library reading that such sacred stones form deep within mountains where mana accumulates. Compared to his peers, Hajime was always unremarkable in raw ability. His school memories are mostly scorn and ridicule, so he rechecks the basic techniques he learned, reminding himself how far behind he is in combat power. As Hajime ventures deeper, flashbacks reveal how he ended up here. 70 days earlier, the class descended into the treacherous reaches of Orcus. During one clash, Kuki Amanogawa covered Hajime when he faltered, making it clear Hajime needed to step up. Kaori Shirasaki checked whether he was okay, and they pushed on until they found a glittering glands crystal, a famed gemstone in kingdom lore. It was a trap. Touching it teleported them into a perilous zone packed with monsters. In the chaos, Kaori, Captain Meld, Shizuku Yagashi, and the others fought to hold back the demonic horde, but the creature's power overwhelmed them. A divine protection barrier kept them alive for a time, yet even that began to fail. In that desperate moment, Hajime used transmutation to disrupt the approaching enemies and open a path across a bridge, letting classmates advance. When he turned to follow, a blast struck him, a teammate's direct attack. He toppled from the edge as the bridge collapsed under monster assault, plunging into the labyrinth's fathomless depths. On death's doorstep and feeling utterly betrayed, Hajime questioned why he ever agreed to train in Orcus. Resolving to live, he did the unthinkable. He ate monster meat for sustenance, and managed to trap two wolf-type beasts. Consuming their flesh triggered a strange surge from their blood, but he survived. Checking his status plate, he found his level increased and new skills gained, lightning-related and wolf-like traits. With transmutation, he fashioned a revolver and named it Donner. then crafted and tested blast rounds from different stones. Armed with these new tools, he hunted down a rabbit monster and defeated it, further boosting his abilities. Eventually, he faced the bear again to settle the score. Hajime goaded it, slipped past its swipes, and answered with precise gunplay. A well-placed shot shattered the creature's arm. A heartbeat later, a clean headshot ended the fight. It was a decisive rematch victory. On floor 17, he drank again from the sacred stone and wondered how long this nightmare would continue. The lower levels were even darker than before, and visibility was miserable. When a lizard-like monster lunged in the blackness, he kept his cool, using lightning bombs to stun and finish it with measured Donner shots. Level by level, he cut through anything that blocked his path. By the time he reached floor 44, his resolve to exterminate whatever stood before him had hardened into a routine of survival. Meanwhile, his classmates reported to the king. They explained how the Glan's crystal trap on the 20th floor had warped them directly to the unprecedented 65th level, deepest any humans had reached, where they encountered a terrifying behemoth. The king reminded them their summoning was bound by royal agreement. News of the gods' heroes being lost must be concealed, and they were forbidden to speak of what happened to anyone. Elsewhere, Shizuku tended to Kaori, who had collapsed in the labyrinth. Kaori remembered the moment a spell struck Hajime as he tried to rejoin the group, sending him into the abyss. When Kuki argued against Captain Meld's judgment, Shizuku sided with the captain, calling the choice necessary. Still turning possibilities over in her head, Shizuku practiced alone on the lawn and recalled their very arrival in this world, summoned by the Church of Pope Ishtar to fight demons and their monster allies. Humans, demons, and beastmen. For decades, humanity has been barely hanging on while demons controlled the monsters, the war pushing human existence to the brink. While reflecting, Shizuku began quietly suspecting Hiyama, who'd always clashed with Hajime. Perhaps jealousy was involved. She shelved the thought and hurried inside. Kaori woke after 5 days, immediately asking about Hajime. Shizuku tried to deflect, but Kaori pressed until the truth slipped out. Hearing of Hajime's fall, Kaori dropped to the floor, begging Shizuku to take her back into the dungeon. Back in the depths, Hajime continued onward with no idea what floor he was on, only that he'd already descended about 50 levels from where he started. A sealed door and a Pandora-like lock in the depths piqued his curiosity. He tried to open it with transmutation and failed, waking 2 massive guardians. They lunged, but Hajime's evolved tactics and Donner's bite cut them down. From their remains, he learned the keys were hidden inside the monsters. Behind the door, he discovered a golden-haired girl sealed in crystal. He'd hoped for supplies or an ally, not someone imprisoned in stone. Turning to leave, the girl begged him to help. She said her own people betrayed her, sealing her because of immortality and rapid regeneration. Using his ability, Hajime shattered the seal and she stepped out, while he caught his breath after the intense output. She thanked him and asked for a name. He christened her Yue after the moon. She accepted it with a small smile. Their first moment together was cut short. Dagger slammed into Hajime's back, grievously wounding him. Sensing a greater enemy ahead, Hajime shrugged off his coat, handed it to Yue, and told her to climb on his back as he advanced to face a metallic scorpion. Even injured, he unleashed repeated attacks, but its armor shrugged off normal rounds. He vaulted onto its carapace to line up shots, still futile. As the fight escalated, Hajime copied its earth magic trick, raising a stone shield, while Yue drank his blood to restore her mana. Recharged, she fired Azure Blaze, blasting the scorpion hard, yet it still wouldn't die. Seizing the opening, Hajime ordered another volley from Yue. Using the distraction, he planted Donner rounds straight into its head, killing it. When the dust settled, Yue asked why he hadn't run and risked his life instead. Hajime answered that he doesn't run anymore, he'll face what comes. Yue then explained her unique regeneration and revealed that the labyrinths were made by the Liberators. overwhelming beings who rebelled against the gods and built these dungeons. It's believed a liberator might still dwell in the heart of a labyrinth, so finding that core could lead them back to the surface. Motivated, Hajime crafted a second rifle, Schlagen, and the two continued toward the center. On the road, Yui peppered him with questions. Hajime said he was from Earth, that he and his classmates were summoned by a god to fight demons. But unlike the others, he wasn't a frontline fighter. As a Synergist, he'd been branded useless. He admitted he'd been betrayed, lost an arm to a monster, and now had no intention of ever relying on the class again. He was focused on getting stronger himself. He insisted he didn't hold resentment toward them anymore. Hearing his ordeal, Yui cried, saying she too had no home or place to return. Hajime decided she'd come with him on his quest to get back. Soon, they ran into dinosaur-like beasts with parasite flowers growing from their heads. Hajime concluded the creatures were being controlled through those plants, and if they wanted to stop the waves of attackers, they had to find the controller. Fleeing through the onslaught, they reached a cave lined with green crystals. Hajime felt the mastermind was inside. Suddenly, a flower sprouted on Yui's head, enthralling her. She launched spells at Hajime, who narrowly defended and spotted the true monster smirking behind her. Yui shouted for him to shoot through her if needed. Hajime did exactly that, the bullet piercing the flower and killing the hidden controller. Victory secured, Yui spun on him in fury for being so reckless. He'd even burned her outfit in the process. That night, while Hajime roasted monster meat and boasted about the taste, Yui approached, eyes shining. She shed her clothes and stood unabashed, inviting him to let her love him. By morning, they descended toward the final layers. Yui noticed how careful Hajime had become here. They soon reached a sealed gate. A spark of hope lit Hajime's eyes. Maybe this was the way out. Unmoved by hardships, they pressed on and finally reached the 100th floor. A vast, eerie space opened. Glass-like formations, cold light everywhere. When the ground bled crimson and an enormous six-headed dragon rose. The Hydra surged forward, flames, blades, lightning, but Hajime and Yui blocked and countered. Hajime emptied Donner in tight bursts. Yui called down raging sleet, tearing into draconic flesh. The wounds closed at once. There was a healer head among them. Realizing each head had a role, defense, deception, healing, assault. They planned to target the healer. Their barrage was intercepted by the defender, soaking damage for the rest. Suddenly, one head invaded Yui's mind, dragging her back to the darkness of her imprisonment, trying to break her. Tears welled. She froze. Hajime recognized the spellbind and wrenched her free, pulling up a protective barrier around her. He leaned close and kissed her, an unexpected comfort that steadied her heart and kindled her strength for the fight ahead. He promised they'd win together and go home. Empowered, Yui erupted, unleashing a storm of spells. Hajime ramped up fire and steel with Schlagen. When the Hydra tried the same trick on Hajime, it met a mind far harder to sway. He snapped the illusion instantly. Yui's heavenly blade tore off several heads, yet the Guardian doubled down, lashing them with scorching thunder. A blast angled for Yui. Hajime stepped into the line and took it, collapsing under the strain. Desperate, Yui struck back, but her spells barely slowed it. Daggers of light rained like a storm. As defeat loomed, she suddenly found herself cradled. Hajime had risen again. Side by side, they synchronized their offense. Their combined assault snared the monster, and together, they finished it. As the Hydra fell, Hajime's knees buckled, and he slumped into Yui's arms. In answer to their victory, a door ground open ahead, the way to the Liberator's sanctum. On the other side, Aiko Hadayama pushes back against Pope Ishtar's plan to send the students back into the dungeon. She argues they're still reeling from losing Hajime, and forcing an expedition now is reckless. The Pope answers that only those who volunteer will go. Furious, Aiko ends the discussion and returns to her quarters, vowing to do whatever she can to protect her kids. The next morning, Hajime wakes and jolts when he realizes he's on a bed. How is there a bed this deep underground? Even more shocking, Yue is beside him, completely naked. Flustered, he snatches up his clothes and asks where they are. Yue says this is the Liberator's, Maverick's, sanctum. She brought him here after he collapsed post-battle. The clothes he's wearing? They belong to the Liberator. That leads Hajime to suspect the Maverick was actually human. When they step out, an entire mansion sprawls before them, an absurd sight in a dungeon. Inside, they find a chamber with a magic crest on the floor and a skeletal corpse seated on a chair. As Hajime approaches, the soul of Oscar Orcus manifests, praises him for surviving, and explains he's the creator of this labyrinth. The message they're seeing is pre-recorded. Meanwhile, on the 65th floor, Kaori, Shizuku, Kuki Amanagawa, and the others challenge the behemoth again, this time refusing to run. Kuki takes point and divvies up rolls, drawing the monster's aggression so the rest can attack from angles. Shizuku carves through a horn with a full-force strike, but it's not enough to tip the fight. As momentum starts to slip, Suzu raises a shield to deflect the onslaught. Bolstered by Kaori's support magic, the class finally lands a solid series of blows. Kuki seizes the opening, leaps in, and delivers the decisive strike to finish the behemoth. Back in the mansion, Oscar Orcus bequeaths his power to Hajime and warns him not to use it for petty ends. As knowledge floods in, like the world's history being etched into his mind, Hajime learns the so-called Mavericks were actually the Liberators, not villains. Legends have lied about them. He and Yue lay Oscar's remains to rest, keeping only a ring that opens sealed places. With creation magic now in hand, Hajime can literally craft anything he can visualize. They spend time training, experimenting with new skills, refining weapons, even tweaking monster meat processing to squeeze out temporary stat boosts. Once he's satisfied with the basics, Hajime tells Yue they'll face enemies on all sides. The church, the kingdom, maybe even the gods. Yue doesn't waver, her path is with him now. Soon after, a panicked rabbit-eared girl of the Halia Beastmen appears, Shia, begging for help and declaring she can guide them through the Sea of Trees fog with her future sight and unique mana control. Initially, Hajime is reluctant. Yui points out a guide from the forest would be useful. He agrees to hear Shia out, and the trio heads for the forest, cutting down monsters in sync while Shia makes her case to travel with them. Hajime tells the Holia they must stop living timidly, either kill or be killed. Inspired, the tribe starts monster hunting to harden themselves. In a playful spar, Shia even manages to nick Yue's cheek. Later, the tribe returns with their first real haul, beaming with bloody pride. At the Great Tree, they find a monument marked with 4 sigils, relics pointing to other labyrinths, convincing Hajime to go conquer the next one. He leaves the Halia behind to train, hinting he'll need their help down the road. Shia recalls her mother saying she'd meet remarkable people beyond the Sea of Trees. Eyes shining, she insists on the bet Yue accepted. Shia won that duel after all. Yue counters. The future can be changed. In Rasen Gorge, the group searches for an entrance. Shia suddenly finds it, thrilled. Inside, Hajime handles the opening wave of monsters. Soon they reach a stone tablet. Shia playfully smacks it with her hammer, and it regenerates while a voice explains it'll repair itself. They press deeper, dealing with traps through coordination and grit, only to loop back to the starting room. Meanwhile, in the High League Kingdom, Yuka announces that Aiko can't sit still any longer. She'll accompany her. Yuka also pushes classmates to accept that Hajime saved their lives back in Orcus. The scene switches back. Hajime, Yue, and Shia reach Milady Risen's lair. Guards block the corridor, so Hajime has Shia take point, promising he and Yue will step in if needed. After breaking through and climbing a wooden platform, they finally face Milady. Hajime bluntly states his goal, ancient magic, and when Milady quizzes him, he answers. He was dragged here by a god and needs that magic to return home. She won't give up its whereabouts, so the battle begins. Her Azantium armor makes her stubbornly tough, but Hajime isolates a weakness, her heart, and, together with Shia, pounds that point until Milady falls. With her last breath, she warns him. Using ancient magic will put him on the path of a god killer. Then her death proves a trick. Via gravitic magic, she's already transferred herself to another body. Hajime moves to claim her treasure, springs a trap, and the labyrinth ejects all three to a distant shore. They trudge to Masaka Inn. At the counter, Hajime asks for one room, but Yue proposes two, one for her and Hajime, one for Shia. Shia, of course, wants to share with Hajime, and the argument heats until a man approaches, introducing himself as Ilwer Chang, head of the Furin Adventurers Guild. He needs help. A party bound for the northern mountains vanished, including Will Kudera, third son of Count Kudeta. Ilwer requests a rescue mission. Hajime agrees on two conditions: status plates for his team, and Ilwer's absolute obedience to his commands when required. Terms accepted, Hajime, Yue, and Shia depart toward Ilt and the mountains. Elsewhere, in the lakeside town of Ur, Aiko and her group eat while worrying over Shimizu, who's been missing a week. The owner brings bad news. Food is running out because the mountain routes are blocked. Then, Hajime's trio enter. Aiko lights up and rushes over, but Hajime pretends not to know her. A Templar knight mouths off at Shia. Hajime rises and puts a bullet in the knight without ceremony. Later that night, Hajime slips into Aiko's room to explain why he won't travel with them. He recounts the Age of Gods, the mad deity manipulating soldiers called Liberators, only to have humanity turn on them. The Liberators hid in the labyrinths and set trials that grant unique powers. Those who succeed become the so-called Mavericks. The labyrinths hold the key to getting home. Also, he was targeted by a spell from one of her students. That's why he fell. Aiko says some students want to join Hajime. He refuses. She promises to honor his conditions. She and her students will part ways after this talk. On the road, she tells him Shimizu disappeared. Hajime deploys autonomous Ornis drones linked to his vision. They soon find an abandoned shield, a bag, and large quadruped tracks, then a hidden passage behind a waterfall. Inside, they locate Will Kudera. Introducing himself, Hajime explains they're here on Ilwer's orders. Will, guilt-stricken over his comrades' deaths and terrified of a black dragon, spirals into self-blame. Hajime grabs him by the collar and snaps him out of it. When they try to leave, the black dragon ambushes them. Hajime braces a barrier under its breath attack as Yui and Shia launch a combo, Heavenly Calamity and Hammer Blow, dropping it until it gets back up and sends Shia flying. Hajime orders Aiko to lead the others to safety, grinds the dragon down, and with one last smash from Shia, they bring it crashing to the ground. Questioning reveals the dragon is actually a dragonborn girl enslaved by a black-robed mage. Hajime prepares to end it anyway, but Yue stops him. Removing Hajime's metal stake is the only way to avoid killing her when she changes back. She returns to human form, Tio Claris of the Claris clan, and warns that the cloaked man controls the dragonborn and plans to attack Hajime first refuses to get dragged into a war for Will's sake, but Aiko pleads, and he relents, organizing the town's defenses. From the watchtower, he stirs the townsfolk with a blunt speech, praising Aiko and telling everyone to stand firm. He fires the opening shot to drop a demonic dragon, then he, Yue, and Tio unleash a wave that shreds the horde until Tio exhausts herself and Yue's mana dips. Hajime summons Breeze, his bike, and, with Shia, carves a path to the enemy commander, only to find the black-robed puppet master is Shimizu. He takes Aiko hostage with a poisoned needle. A dragon rider snipes at him and chaos erupts. Shia throws herself in front of Aiko and is wounded. Aiko gets poisoned anyway. Hajime cleanses the toxin on the spot, then, unmoved by Aiko's pleas, executes Shimizu, ending it quickly so the burden doesn't fall on her shoulders. After the clash in Ur and Shimizu's death, Hajime and his group continue traveling on Breeze, when an ominous sign catches their attention, an abducted young girl glimpsed at a distance, hinting at more trouble to come. In Furin, Will Kudera reunites joyfully with Guildmaster Ilwer, and Hajime uses the moment to request a new status plate for Tio. Later, Hajime, Yue, Shia, and Tio gather in a room. Hajime looks out the window and notices suspicious figures prowling near the guild. As they talk, Tio recalls her father's words about the limits even gods face and how every scheme eventually fails. She also remembers volunteering for this mission of investigating the alien beings, believing it could impact both their worlds. The next day, Hajime gives Shia a quick tour of Furin. At her suggestion, they visit the aquarium where they run into a talking fish named Lemon. Curious, Hajime asks how it ended up there. Lemon tells them he got trapped by an underground current and wound up confined in the tank. Hajime and Shia devise a plan and free Lemon into a nearby river. Once released, Lemon mentions seeing a little girl involved in a shady exchange, evidence of slavers in the city, and warns them to be careful. On the way back, Hajime senses a child's presence in the sewers. He descends, finds a small girl, and carries her out. When she awakens, he introduces himself and Shia, learning her name is Mew. Back at their place, Hajime and Shia feed and clean her, while Yue and Tio talk privately about Shia's time alone with Hajime. Yue calmly notes Shia's feelings and total commitment to whatever she takes on. From what Mew says, Hajime realizes her captors are likely the very slavers Lemon warned about. After discussing it with Shia, he decides to bring Mew to the city guards for protection. As soon as he leaves Mew with the guards, an explosion rocks the area. Hajime races back and finds a message scrawled on the wall. Send Shia, the white-haired bunny girl, or Mew dies. He and Shia regroup with Yue and Tio, explain the situation, and ask for their help. The four of them move with ruthless precision, tearing down the slaver ring piece by piece. Hajime tracks the boss, drops him without hesitation, and recovers Mew, carrying her into the sky while Yue and Shia erase the slaver's stronghold below. When they reunite on the ground, Mew clings to Hajime, heart-melted, and starts calling him Papa. A while later, they travel on Breeze, with Shia riding her motorbike beside them. As they near the outpost town of Harad, Mew notices Hajime seems subdued and asks why. He explains he passed through this place 4 months ago. In town, he finds Lobeus and delivers Ilwer's letter, detailing Hajime's recent deeds. Suddenly, Endo arrives, reporting a demon attack near the labyrinth. He's visibly relieved Hajime survived. At the same time, the heroes are already investigating the intruding monster trail. A demoness appears, demanding they surrender and join her. She claims one of them already did. Kuki's group doesn't buy it and engages, but the monsters are far stronger than expected. Shizuku is quickly incapacitated. The heroes scratch out a small win only to watch the demoness heal her minions in an instant. Seeing the gap in power, Shizuku orders Endo to alert Captain Meld. In the chaos, Kuki unleashes Limit Break, blasting one creature down, but Taniguchi falls to the demons, and Shizuku slaps Kuki back to reality, telling him to retreat. Endo sprints to Meld, but a pursuing demon closes in. Captain Meld stands his ground, telling Endo to run as he challenges the enemy head-on. A battered, bloodied Meld staggers back to the heroes, only for the demon lady to appear and kill him before their eyes. Lobeus asks Hajime to help rescue the others. Hajime tells Endo bluntly these people are strangers to him and mean nothing, but as Endo pleads and old memories surface, Hajime finally agrees to aid the Imperial heroes. On the front line, Shizuku fights on despite severe wounds. Kari rushes in to shield her, but the barrier collapses and both are about to be finished, when a metal rod hurtles from the sky, skewering the monsters. The rescuer steps forward. Hajime Nagumo has arrived. While carving a root off the mountain, Hajime gets an idea. He pulls out his pile driver, long rods made from compressed ore and coated in azantium, and uses it to punch a tunnel, springboarding onto the battlefield with a dramatic entrance that stuns everyone. He assigns roles to Yue, Shia, and Tio, and takes the hardest targets, the demons and the demon lady, for himself. He cuts down wave after wave, sniping invisible foes and exposing them one by one. Even as the demoness grows terrified, he never slows, annihilating the horde. The heroes stare, wondering who this monster of a man even is. Endo reveals the truth. It's Hajime Nagumo, the boy who fell from the bridge. Hayama scoffs. It can't be. He was involved in Hajime's fall. But Endo points to the status plate as proof. In the chaos, Yue corners Hayama, asking what he intended back then. Hajime, meanwhile, neutralizes the demoness's healer, removing her ability to regenerate. She summons a serpent to strike Shizuku. Hajime tosses his sword to Shizuku mid-air, and she slices the snake cleanly apart. The demon lady tries to flee. Hajime cuts her off, and explains he's already deduced their monsters are products of ancient magic, gained when the demon race conquered a labyrinth. He raises his weapon and moves in to execute her. Kuki throws himself in the way, begging him to stop. Hajime shoves past without mercy and finishes the demo-ness. Afterward, Taniguchi and Meld are tended by Shia, but the grief and shock still hang heavy. Kori rushes into Hajime's arms, overwhelmed that he's alive. A thick tension rises between Hajime and Kuki. Reading it, Hajime confronts him and draws a line. He doesn't spare enemies, ever. If Kuki opposes that, they'll be enemies too. When a large army under Lobeus arrives, Kori gathers her courage and confesses she wants to go with Hajime. He answers gently but firmly. His heart belongs to Yue. Yue, half teasing, invites Kori to come along anyway. Kori accepts the unspoken challenge, and a friendly rivalry sparks. Hajime says they'll leave tomorrow. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to see what happens next. See you soon!